Hello guys, and welcome back to Strategic Command World War II, World at War with our Allied playthrough. In the last episode, we took on the war in the Pacific, as you can see by Hawaii, with some very risky moves, but some things I'm hoping will get us some results, as well as kind of starting to shift the UK's attention away from its fronts in Europe and towards the Pacific, which will weaken it a little bit, but still, the distraction provided should hopefully be valuable for the Soviet Union, who we are taking on right now. We unfortunately do not have any more upgrades for infantry like we do, well, it's not on the front line. I believe we do have some kinds of upgrades. We're going to go ahead and reinforce the corps at Odessa, which is still surprisingly holding on. Most of the enemies seem to have just gone around it. They seem to be in a rush, if I do say so myself. We did get some anti-air we actually already had. We had been assigning anti-air upgrades is what we had been doing. Now, before research, just getting units up to strength and helping them survive matters the most. We're going to reinforce the 10th Army that is over here defending a river that the enemies are currently getting around, pushing up to Kiev. We're going to go ahead and reinforce the army sitting on Kiev. We have some planes out here in the east, which I'm going to fly. The winter, the snow is slowing them down, but I'm gonna fly them to some nearby supply hubs. I don't know if we'll ever end up operating them rather than flying them, but at the very least, moving them right now doesn't necessarily hurt us. Again, the enemy's northern advance is going surprisingly slow, so we don't need to actually pay as much attention up there, because their drive towards Moscow is, well, it's pitiful right now. I was in the process of moving the 12th Corps here to Kerch to reinforce Sevastopol and make sure that it doesn't fall from behind. So we're going to move this garrison out of the way, get it probably moving back to a different point. Everything down here, again, needs to take priority because this is where the Germans are focusing the bulk of their invasion, not up north like I suspected. The 43rd Army is going to move into position at this fortification, which thankfully gives it some immediate entrenchment due to the probably presence of the walls facing west here. So our special forces near Kiev here are going to get their anti-air defenses. We have some second light tanks that we're going to reinforce. We have to be in a rush here because this stuff is still rather close to the front. And yeah, I don't know if they have way more units up here that I just don't see, but it does appear that there's a nice concentration of them by Kiev. So this is definitely a point of power that they seem to wish to push. Maybe to avoid the slowness of the winter up north, I'm not quite sure. But everything down here does have anti-air now on the front, which means we're rather set up to get other units ready. So we can get anti-air and infantry weapons for the 4th paratroopers down here. Things nearby primarily need to get up to 10 strength first before I hand them their upgrades. This is costing me a fuck ton of money because a lot of this stuff is mechanized, or otherwise corps. We do have a rather weak front at this city whose name I'm not even going to try to pronounce, so I'm going to operate this corps, which has its upgrades, to go just behind it for the time being. Don't want to take the garrison off there yet. I don't know if I'll keep entrenchments if I don't just swap in due to the lack of any fortifications here. 373 MPPs, we are absolutely burning through our MPPs, even while just focusing on one front, but that's okay, because this one front is going to make a lot of the difference, and we can shift attention later if needed. Our MPP situation for the USSR will be fantastic. This is the one place where I don't think we're going to be hurting for MPPs. Sure, there's probably more than we can do. Oh, there definitely is. But we're not going to be hurting for MPPs. However, oh yeah, there's a situation up here I want to deal with. So, a heavy cruiser has wandered its happy ass up here towards my navy. I don't have any naval weaponry upgrades, nor am I going to get that anytime soon. They do have it. We don't have enough ports here right now to perfectly guard everything, assuming Riga still falls, which is why this situation is like it is back here. So we're going to want to make it very deadly for anybody that shows up back here. So let's send the S4 sub back away from the convoy route. Oh my good God. They have so much. I thought it was just going to be one heavy cruiser. They have a battle cruiser, another battle cruiser. This battle cruiser's injured. Let's go ahead and attack it with the sub since we can do that. And we've dealt some damage. Okay. They've just decided, hey, let's go hunt the Russian fleet up here. And I mean, hats off. they certainly sent enough ships to do the job here. We'll send forward the Marat battleship, and what do you know? There's another enemy ship here. Dealt 5 damage to our battleship, and we dealt 4 damage. I guess it figures that where there was some extra ships, there would be even more. So we'll just send the Marat back to port now. The Gorky is going to sit here and be its defense. The tactical bombers up here are not currently in any good position to help, but I'll go ahead and divert some resources up here to reinforce them, because the fact that the Germans have all these ships over here means that if they continue their attack, they will be sitting ducks to aerial units. They have no aerial protection for anything up here, and they won't, seeing as most of their push is in the south. Now, there's still more we can do in the south here, and this needs to still be the focus of where we assign things like upgrades and things like reinforcements, such as to these cores right here. They need to be reinforced up to strength. It's becoming very likely, maybe not fully yet, we'll have to watch and see, that we can leave just like nothing back here. Shift garrisons back if the line starts to, you know, kind of hold. We can shift garrisons back to take care of Stalingrad and etc. and shift forward the cores, since the Russian situation is going better than I had originally anticipated. Now, unfortunately, the red fighters here, well, right now they can't even take off to escort because of the snow. But the red fighters here are probably not going to want to stay where they are, because I guess I should have considered this earlier. The situation here, the enemies can probably just about almost get up right next to my fighters. I'm going to move our HQ south a touch, so it's protected by the anti-air, and still hopefully providing good bonuses. I'll move the second red fighters back a touch, just so it's out of range of any enemy that reach the river here. Down south, we can go ahead and reinforce the Kiev fighters. We can go ahead and reinforce this medium bomber group, get those up to strength, and we still have 187 MPPs, so we can still actually put some attention elsewhere. There's a lot of anti-air upgrades that we still need to assign, more than we need to get units onto other fronts here. However, everything defending Moscow is almost ready to be deployed, and if we operate, they don't even have to go to Moscow. So I'm thinking about it, but I think I'll prioritize the anti-air upgrades for now, even though the snow is keeping the German air grounded. If it shows up, it could hurt a lot and could be just what they need to break through some of our defenses. So let's go ahead, assigning some anti-air upgrades around the front line here, namely to the units that are actually holding the front line that don't already have it. We'll even include these engineers here who are still currently making some fortifications. Looks like that's almost everything. We can go ahead and upgrade the Vladivostok Corps. Okay, that's good. Anything else? We have this mechanized that could use some anti-air defense. Getting down towards 100 MPPs here. Not so bad. Alright. There's some more units that could use stuff like this, but they're a bit further back, so I'm not as worried. However, we're going to go ahead and give advanced tanks and anti-air to the first shock heavy tanks here, because the presence of strong tanks and the lack of presence of any enemy offensive coming towards the river here means we might be able to start deploying some of these tanks offensively. And if we can do that, that would certainly help. You know, we'd lose less garrisons, we'd lose less things that we have to replace later on, ideally. And then that situation is just pretty good. Since we have some points left over, let's go ahead and give AA defense to the 2 cores that spawned behind Moscow, so that we can operate them up to the front where they're needed sooner rather than later. 58 MPPs remaining. The HQ down here at Novgorod is assisting the front. However, I want to move it closer. The situation for that is not the greatest. We don't have a good place where we can just kind of leave it. I think I'll leave it here because it is going to be assisting the tactical bombers who might be needing it next turn against the enemy ships. 58 MPPs remaining. Okay. We definitely want to use these on something of relevance on this side. So we can reinforce some more stuff here. Yeah. Let's go ahead and reinforce these 2 cores. That brings us down to 16. Don't think we can reinforce a plane unit up to snuff. No, we cannot. Not with this amount of money. There's another core here. Can only get that up to 9, so we'll probably just ignore that for now. Due to the general situation here, I'm going to take the Baltic fighters, even though they're not recovered. I'm going to fly them over near Leningrad, just to where the tactical bombers are, just in case. I'm going to just save the remaining 16 MPPs. There's not really a whole lot I can do. Oh, you know, there's something, actually. AA defense on this garrison, for whatever that's worth. It's in the south. The south is important, so hopefully that logic is sound. We are not going to do anything with India's MPPs. They cannot research anything right now, and they cannot purchase anything of any value, nor do we really need them purchasing anything, especially when they have upcoming money they're going to have to spend on other things, which brings us to the final front for now, which is going to be China. So immediately we're going to take the second heavy artillery and use it on the enemy first corps over here. We are going to then attack with the first army, dealing damage and not losing anything, so that's pretty nice. However, of course, it's a situation where the army here can never escape, so we're going to have to move the 68th Army back to be able to move this army out, to be able to move this army there, because you can't swap from a distance, which is unfortunate. How's supply? Now that we have Hanoi's supply up to 7, it's pretty good, and the HQ is pushing supply down, although at the furthest front, our situation is still not the greatest in terms of supply. But we're going to keep pushing the army down south. Again, I don't think we're going to end up having to worry about Indochina or Thailand or anything like that, but definitely leaving garrisons or corps here could be handy. I'll probably end up operating the army out when this is all said and done. Looks like we can get AA defense for this unit down here. We're going to do that since we're not in any rush right now. We'll move the first corps down south so we can keep up with our units. We're going to move the HQ down, trying to get it towards Hue where it can provide some better supply. We're going to keep flying the Flying Tigers northeast about as far as they can get, not spending any operational movement on them. The snow is currently slowing them down, but that's fine. We're mostly well off over here anyway. We're not dealing with anything that's too crazy. It's mostly just our supply lines trying to catch up that's slowing us down in any way. I'm going to take the 42nd Army and we're going to want to move it towards Pusan. We know there's medium bombers here, so we're going to go ahead, drop down and attack them, dealing 4 damage, taking none. Beautiful. Let's send, well, we don't really need to send anything there. If this is all that's remaining at Pusan, this is just going to fly away as the Japanese try to somehow maintain their MPPs. At the very least, China is still doing a great job at hurting Japanese national morale, and especially their MPPs as they have to repair their air force and as they have to rebuild all the land units that they lost. Now, I don't think the AI will actually prioritize re-invading China, so that's something to keep in mind. We're going to have to move this corps up. Let's see what we can spot. Enemy plane, which we cannot actually damage, apparently, but we'll go ahead and attack anyway. This corps is not really needed down here. It can stay over here, so just so that there's something over here. In terms of corps are going to be our garrisons over here, I guess. Well, in that case, you know what? You might as well just go south, because the army is not going to be what's staying at Pusan if that's the case, because the Chinese are also going to have, well, nowhere to go. The Chinese are also not going to make that big of a difference from this point onwards. There's a lot more upgrades China can do, a lot of reinforcing it needs to do. I'm going to prioritize any reinforcements over here that it needs to get during this winter moment. Anti-air upgrades could be handy here. However, maintaining our offensive could be equally handy, so I'm not really sure how I feel about doing any of that. This corps here doesn't look the best off, so we can maybe make some progress there. I'm going to go ahead and move the Dare to Die Special Forces up. I'm going to move this corps, because only that corps can reach across the river as well, which means we'll move the engineers north to hold this defensive line. We'll move the artillery up behind these forces here. We have the army who can move forward, but not very much. Enough to be able to swap out, so we're going to move them forward. We're going to reinforce the mechanized light tanks here. We have the 54th Army, which is still just trying to catch up, although, of course, the winter is slowing them down. We'll take the Feng HQ, and we'll move that up to Helsinki so that there's something there. We'll take the 2nd Corps, and even though they can reinforce, we'll move them forward just to form a defensive line around Helsinki and the what is this? The HQ that we have put here. I don't want to run into this enemy army, even if there are planes there to attack. So we'll put those points into recovering the unit that is here. Let's see, what else can we do? We have this corps that can chase up after everything. The army's going to go this way. kind of reach the roadway and head northeast. This corps is going to head, well, okay, so this corps will head this way. This corps will head down the other way. This army will head up northeast this way. And the first anti-air here is going to just move up after everyone to try to provide anti-air, just in case the enemy planes are able to take off if their turn has better weather than mine, which isn't that a normal thing that the AI always gets better weather than you? It sure feels like it, doesn't it? We have 230 MPPs remaining. I can board a singular amphibious transport, which would take 51 MPPs to board this singular corps. However, a normal amphibious transport, while not the greatest, it should be all we need to break in here. What are the chances that they actually have, like, units on both of these? I'm not sure. Maybe garrisons. At the very least, amphibious transports can attack. I will take this risk. We are going to go ahead and we are going to spend the 51 MPPs it takes to board this corps onto an amphibious transport. We cannot actually use it right now. Starts at 10 supply. I think I looked in the manual. Normal amphibious transports will lose supply every turn that they are at sea. Long-range ones won't do this. All this stuff has pretty much been upgraded, so we want to get them in position around some ports here. This stuff is all upgraded as well. This can get some elite reinforcements, but we'll see if we actually end up doing that. We have a number of ports here we can utilize after all. You need to get your anti-air defenses. So, I will split you guys up. This corps will head to Fuchao. So we have 2 units bordering this port. This unit, this army. Oh, the army. The army's going to really stay in the rear. Thinking about it. So what we'll do is we'll actually make room by moving this corps down towards Amoy. The army's going to stay in the rear for the time being. So the 5th corps is going to move down here to border this port. So it's 2 more corps to the army. We have another army here as well. I'll go ahead and I'll start sending that south. Really no rush in this area because we're limited to 1 transport of any kind. Well, no, yeah. Of normal transports and then of amphibious transports separately at a time. So there's not very much we can do. We are researching amphibious warfare, which we are going to need, hopefully, while the Americans and Brits distract the Japanese Navy, as the Japanese Navy tries to get kills, as it tries to do things well. Hopefully they just won't leave enough back here to guard for some Chinese incursions, and we can pick up the pace, take these little islands, and kind of island hop our way northeast. Hopefully we can do that kind of range with the upgrades coming in. I'll continue moving the 7th garrison towards Changsha. Again, this HQ will stay nice and happy right where it is. I will go ahead and get the elite reinforcements for this corps. We have enough room in our total research funding to get another 125 MPP research in. Looking at all the options, I think I'm going to put it into anti-aircraft defense because with the Japanese air power being so strong, this is one of the few things we can definitely do to strengthen ourselves against them. We're going to go ahead and queue that research up for China. That leaves us with 31 MPPs, which we can spend on trivial things like getting the garrison in Canton with some AA defense. That leaves us 21 MPPs. Again, just some trivial things we can spend that on. We don't even need to, but get the 1st garrison with infantry weapons and anti-aircraft defense over here at Hanoi, down to 1 MPP, and so then that's it for our entire turn. There's a lot of very high risk, high stakes stuff happening in the world right now, especially regarding the USSR and regarding America over here in the Pacific, even the Brits in the Pacific. There's very little we can do other than what we have done. Hopefully my plans in motion will work out for us in the long run. Let's go ahead and hit end turn, see what the Axis have for us. Well, first we have a decision. We could improve the safety of our convoy routes by increasing the strength of Coastal Command through deploying a unit of maritime bombers at Reykjavik in Iceland. With a base there, Coastal Command should be able to take a significant step towards closing the Mid-Atlantic gap, providing air cover over a larger area of the ocean to assist the Battle of the Atlantic. Deploying a unit of maritime bombers will cost 100 MPPs at 50 MPPs a turn for 2 turns. If you say yes, you can use it to launch reconnaissance missions against likely U-boat locations. Yeah, I just discovered that aircraft could do this in the manual, and I don't even know how to do it yet, but it's definitely important to learn how to do that now that the war in the Pacific is on. It will be best to research and upgrade this with long-range aircraft as to extend its strike range. This unit is in Icelandic service and cannot be operated for use elsewhere. That is a very important note. However, I don't even know. Iceland probably can't even purchase maritime bombers. So just 100 MPPs for a unit that would otherwise cost me like 300 MPPs that I couldn't even recruit for a nation like defying the cap? Sure. Yeah, maybe the Battle of the Atlantic will get to that point. I'll fucking take it. Let's go. Coastal Command AHQ Iceland formed. And we get it immediately. That's amazing. General Stilwell is available to command Chinese forces. This is advisable as his presence in China will greatly assist the Chinese in their fight, and he can command any Chinese units that might be sent to assist British Indian forces in the defense of Burma. Wait, I thought China was non-cooperative, so how can the Chinese assist the British Indian forces? Maybe it's just that the others can't resupply in China, but China can resupply in them? I am looking in the manual. I'm learning a lot of things. I found some things. It's here for the editor, I think. But non-cooperative majors that liberate minor countries will override the previous parent country setting and become the new parent. So even if Indochina was supposed to be with the UK, because they were liberated by China, it gets overridden. And then that goes for the Soviet Union as well. I was wondering how that would work. If the Soviets liberate Poland, then Poland becomes a minor of the Soviets. As opposed to if the UK liberated it, it would become a minor of the UK, and then the UK would incidentally block the Soviets' ability to advance, I think? The one thing is that I cannot find if non-cooperative majors can resupply in cooperative countries. It stresses a lot how non-cooperative majors can't supply cooperative ones, but it doesn't mention at all if cooperative ones will supply non-cooperative ones. The only thing it mentions is that non-cooperative cannot operate, as in move by rail, within cooperative major area. But it's starting to sound like, due to the lack of mention, that a Chinese unit could move into British territory and benefit from supplies there, just wouldn't be able to move out quickly, nor would it be able to operate. Doesn't say anything about transports either, so that's weird. But still well to China. Let's see, no additional notes. If you decide not to send him, he will take up command in America instead. So the thing here is that a lot of the American units, with how I'm going to be using them, they're not even going to benefit from having HQs, because they're going to be landing on islands with no room to even land HQs, you know? These are going to be island hopping campaigns, and most of what America is going to be doing is going to be naval, not land-based. China doesn't fucking need national morale. China doesn't need any more HQs, but 75 MPPs. America is going to be making like, 800 plus every turn now, I think. And that's only going to go up with more research. 2,500 national morale for the Chinese. Okay. It'll get them over there where they can help the Indians and Brits if needed, or otherwise just at least benefit the Chinese in some direct way, because one way or another, Stilwell's just not going to be needed anywhere else. Like, I'm not going to need him for anything that I'm planning. For years, Hopefully never, if all my plans go well. So we'll say yes to this. We'll say yes. Chinese national morale boosted by the arrival of Joseph Stilwell. General Vinegar Joe Stilwell. Oh, that doesn't sound good. Takes command of Chinese units. Oh, he turns into a Chinese unit. Oh, really? Well, then if that's the way it works, then it sounds almost certain that he would be able to benefit from the supply of these other nations. Okay. With Persia in allied hands, we can make use of the country to send supplies to the USSR. For the cost of only 40 MPPs a turn, the goods we send via Persia would be worth 80 MPPs to the USSR. Their arrival would also boost Soviet national morale by 200 points a turn. Oh my god! The increased benefit of these goods to the USSR is due to their much greater scarcity value there, so sending war supplies and food this way will be extremely useful to the Soviet Union. Would you like to send supplies via Persia? Notes. Following the conquest of Persia, the US sent huge amounts of war material to the USSR through the country. Given the economic worth to the USSR of doing so, it's very strongly advised to say yes to this. So basically, including Vladivostok, we can send 80 total, transform it into 160, and also give 200 national morale points a turn. That's insane. I'm saying yes to this. Of course I'm saying yes to this. That's insane. Dominican Republic joins the Allies? Oh, okay. Thanks, that's cool. Didn't expect that. Finland moved 5% more towards the Allies. I wish it was more. We're getting kind of unlucky on the amounts of movement that we're getting, but it's something. Axis Raider disrupt Australia, UK convoys. Oh, there is a sub, isn't there? Okay, UK production technology. USA develops advanced fighters level 2. Scientist, okay, tech. Let's see. 257 by the end of the turn due to everything we're funding with the UK, including what America's sending, which is debuffed due to the winter, unfortunately. USSR is pulling in massive amounts. UK is sending 247 a turn to them, which is hopefully going to be very valuable in turning around that situation there. They're making so much now, especially including what the US is sending them. I'm tempted to like pull off the brakes. The USSR definitely needs these points early on to maintain the line and stop from losing as much early on. But if we get in a good position here, it's very likely we could just stop the Arctic convoys altogether and just rely on the American MPPs going there mostly. I do not regret the amount that I am currently sending. I'm very happy with the amount that I am currently sending because the USSR really, really needs it to hold off against that German line. And it's going to be better in any short or long term in the upcoming year than it otherwise would have been in the UK's hand. This end turn ended up taking way longer than I expected it to and being way more eventful. So rather than go way over the time, I'm gonna call it here. This feels like a pretty good place to call it. And next time, be prepared for a lot of excitement because it's gonna be a roller coaster of emotions. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.